Hello everyone, someone said something about Halloween, so here we are, and we're going to talk about why the story is not a normal ghost story. So sit down and let's talk. But to do that, I'm going to turn some lights on, because the lighting is bad in here. Now, Ghostlight is a book about ghosts, but it's not the kind of ghost story you'd expect. And going into this, I wasn't expecting everything. I was just going, okay, I've never read a story that features ghosts really before. I've seen lots of them, that kind of thing, but I was interested, and the concept looked really cool. And let me tell you this, the concept of Ghostlight is super cool. So I haven't read too many ghost stories, so I don't have too many things to compare it with, but personally, I think this book did a lot of things originally, and a lot of different things that I haven't seen before in other books. Basically, the concept is pretty similar. People die, some of them have a purpose, so they linger, so they become ghosts. That's all pretty standard, but that's kind of where the standard ghosty stuff ends. And where we tread into the ghosts can eat other ghosts territory, and there's a special laser beam that can destroy them and send them off to the next realm. There's lots of things like that that are different that I haven't actually seen before, which are also really cool. But another thing Ghostlight does really well is the characters. I felt really attached to a couple of the characters for sure, though one of them I felt like could have used a little more development, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But mostly the characters I felt were really well written. For example, Gabe and Yuri, their friendship and also just them as people, I felt really attached to them, and their wants and desires really meant something to me, which is always good in a book. But to go on a bit more about what I think about Ghostlight, we're gonna have to do some spoilery sections, so if you don't mind that, keep watching. Something about this book is that it also starts differently than I've seen in a lot of other books. It's set up in a very interesting way, where we have this character, Rebecca, who is set up to be the main character. She's written in that way, where it's not like a prologue as in that she's like, oh, this is just time before. It is literally just the first chapter, so when you read it, it makes you think that Rebecca is going to be the main character. And also, for someone who didn't read too much of the little inner back description, I was fully hooked. I was like, oh yeah, Rebecca's the main character. She wants to be this lighthouse keeper who wards away ghosts with the ghost light. We'll get into that later, I promise, it'll make sense. But then the chapter ends with Rebecca and her father falling off the top of the lighthouse and dying. And you're like, oh my goodness! You don't expect that in a first chapter, especially when these characters are set up to be the main characters. It turns out they sort of aren't. So when chapter 2 rolls around, you're like, okay, I guess Rebecca's dead? But then, give it another couple chapters, and you realize, Rebecca's a ghost. The pacing of this book's interesting. We go from the first chapter just bam, 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 Viker comes in, oh, dead, bam! And then we just go to this, teenager who's in a summer job. He's doing a tour of the lighthouse, just haunted. Ooh, we've skipped, 200 years, by the way. And it's all, he does his tour, he does it all the day, and he's a bit tired, and he's like, oh, whatever. And then we get introduced to this girl, Callie, who says, I have a ghost blog, and things like that, and this is really interesting, and that, and he's like, well, yeah, whatever. But when he gets home, it's the same chapter, by the way, so things are moving fast. He begins to realize something weird might be happening, and then he meets the ghost of Rebecca Strand, who is the character that died in chapter 1. And so we get set up ghosts, we get death, everything's going quickly. And I think because I didn't really read this little blurb at the beginning carefully, it preserved the experience of the book a lot more. So I'm actually going to start doing that with more books, because I feel like that helps maintain the pacing and the mystery of the beginning. Some of the things I find interesting about Ghostlight is that ghosts can eat other ghosts to make themselves stronger, and as they eat more ghosts, they get stronger, which means they can have more effect in the more physical world. And they can start causing things, and they can just pinch a little bit of one thing there, or light a match there just to cause a fire. They can do things like this. But the problem is those ghosts that want to eat other ghosts are usually malicious, and so there's this ghost named Viker who has consumed so many ghosts that he's absolutely powerful. But at the end of chapter 1, Rebecca dies, vanquishing him, or at least almost. Viker is reduced to nothing, and as we see in a couple chapters in, we see Viker is this just a ghost. There's not much a part of him. He's not very strong, and he slowly eats more ghosts. And it's actually really cool to see throughout the story that he goes from this really weak ghost to this mega powerful being that can literally interact with the physical realm. It's very cool. And by the way, the thing that can vanquish ghosts or send them off to the next realm and release them is light of a strong enough energy. And that's where the lighthouses come in. The lighthouses have big light beams on them that are able to burn up ghosts and send them off. And some lighthouses have an object called a Ghostlight. And a Ghostlight is a filter almost you can put on the light. And it boosts its power, makes it ultra powerful, and that's how Viker was nearly vanquished in the first chapter. This book is called Ghostlight, as you probably can tell, and you can probably sense it has a lot to do with the book. And something interesting that's really spoilery, by the way, that builds on this is that the Ghostlight is not only something that can destroy ghosts, but it can also be changed to make ghosts stronger. So if a ghost cracks it in a certain way, it turns into a thing called Ghostlight. So what it becomes is this powerful violet beam that can strengthen ghosts. And that is the big reveal at maybe the 2/3 to 3/3 mark of the book, where it's like, oh, Viker hasn't been chasing the Ghostlight because it's the only thing that can kill him. It's because he wants to get this power boost. A few things that were a bit was, there's this moment in the book where it's like, why don't ordinary lights just zap at ghosts all the time? I'm not sure why. I guess they just avoid it and go at night? Alright, I guess not. I don't know. And then just moves on and is never mentioned again. And maybe I missed something. I could have easily missed something later on. But I feel like there should have been an answer more to that. Like, yeah, why not just ordinary light, which is super powerful compared to the light back then and 200 years ago? Why doesn't that just burn up a lot of ghosts? Maybe it does, but we didn't really get an answer, and I feel like we needed one. It's just a little thing, but I've been thinking about that. And it wasn't even just a thing that I came up with. It was literally mentioned in the book. Characters were like, hey, why doesn't ghosts just burn up all the time? It doesn't seem to have been answered in the book, though I could have missed something. And something about the characters is that I feel like some of the characters, particularly Callie, needed a little bit more development, because the concept I was really good with. The concept was great. I just think it could have used a bit more in some places so you really feel attached to this character and want to vote for this character and want them to succeed. And not just, oh, I hope the crew succeeds. Callie will help, you know? Because Callie's cool, it's just a bit more. Maybe some more time with her, doing things. Maybe some more of why she wants things. Give her some stakes, maybe. Something like that. I don't know exactly, but something to give her more. Because I think she's an interesting concept. I think she just needed more. I really liked Ghostlight. This is just a good book that is different than what I've been reading. And by an author I've read before. Kenneth Opel's a really great author. He wrote Airborne and all that. Really great author. And so, in conclusion, I think this is a good book, and you should try reading it too. And me reading it kind of lined up with Halloween really well. Not intentionally, by the way. I just read it, and then I was like, oh, I can make a video about this for Halloween. And so, I hope everyone has a happy Halloween if you do that. If you're all about Halloween, great. If you're not, whatever. But I hope we can all appreciate Ghostlight together. If you like this video, go check out this next video here, where I talk about some of the books I've been reading recently. I hope your day is full of spookiness.